Bonjour tout le monde. Aujourd'hui, on va discuter les reflexive verbs in French. A couple of parts that we'll go over together. First of all, what is a reflexive verb? Might be the first thing you're wondering. How do we use reflexive verbs in French, and what are some reflexive verbs that I should know? So some grammar theory, some applied grammar, and some vocabulary. Start off, what is a reflexive verb? A reflexive verb is a verb where the subject, so the person or thing doing the action, and the object, the person or thing receiving the action, are the same. So the action is being reflected from the subject back onto itself. Here are some examples for reference about sentences in English that are not reflexive. So you type your notes, I'm worried about them, I read a book. Here we can see the person doing the action of typing and the thing being typed are two different things, for example. So this would be not reflexive. Verbs that would be reflexive in French and don't always work out exactly the same in English, but we'll start wrapping our heads around it. For example, I'm worrying, because the idea is that you're doing the worrying and you're also the person who you're worrying. I brush my teeth, right? I'm doing the brushing, and I'm also the person receiving the action of the brushing, specifically through my teeth. Or he tans himself, right? He's doing the thing, and then also it is himself that he is tanning, right? So we can kind of illustrate that here. You see that for the sentences that are not reflexive. We have our subject, and then our object is somewhere else. You, and then your notes. I, and then them. I, and then a book. Right? The subject and object are in different spots for a sentence that is not reflexive. For sentences that are reflexive, we're going to see the subject and the object in the same spot, right? So I'm worrying. Who am I worrying? I'm worrying myself. I'm brushing my teeth. He's tanning himself. Voila. So what do we do with this? How do we use these reflexive verbs in French? First thing is that we need to add the correct reflexive pronoun at the beginning. As a reminder, a pronoun is just a part of speech that replaces a noun. So instead of I worry myself, it'd be like I me worry in French. So based on the subject you're talking about, you're going to have a different reflexive pronoun that you will add on. This does not replace the subject you're talking about. It does not replace the verb. For these types of reflexive verbs, it goes with. So for example, for je, you're always going to add the same thing, which will be me. For tu, you'll add te. For il, elle, elle, and on, you'll add se. For nous, you'll add nous. This doesn't mean that you get a freebie and you don't have to add it. It means it's going to look a little funky where you're going to have nous, right? You're going to have the same word repeat twice next to itself. Same with vous, becomes vous. And il, elle, elle is also se, just like in the singular. Second step is we conjugate the verb. So use the rules that you already know. Quick refresher for present tense ER verbs, you drop the ER and you add E for je, ES for tu, E for il, elle, elle, on, ONS for nous, EZ for vous, ENT for il, elle, elle. For present tense IR verbs, a quick reminder, you drop the IR and you add IS for je, IS for tu, IT for il, elle, elle, on, ISS-ONS for nous, ISS-EZ for vous, ISS-ENT for il, elle, elle. And then for present tense RE verbs, you drop the R and and you add S for je, S for tu. You add nothing for il, elle, elle, on. You just leave it as whatever the verb looks like with the RE at the end taken off. ONS for nous, EZ for vous, ENT for il, elle, elle. If you find that you still struggle a little bit with present tense verbs, I'll link the whole explanation here for a little bit more detail. But keep in mind your patterns, right? You have probably started to notice already that nous will always end with ONS, just sometimes some extra stuff at the beginning. Same with vous will always end with EZ, just sometimes with some extra stuff. So just keep that in mind. So we have a reflexive pronoun. We conjugate the verb. Let's talk about some vocabulary for reflexive verbs that you should know. For the first unit where we're using these, for our Myers-Briggs unit, here are some that will come up that you'll need to know. First, we've got two synonyms. We have s'inquiéter, and se soucier. Se soucier. Ça veut dire to worry about. We have se retrouver, to find yourself. S'ennuyer, to become bored. S'interroger, to question yourself, right? We've got a fancy cognate here, like interrogate. Se demander, to ask yourself or to wonder. Se sentir, to feel. S'intéresser à, to be interested in. And then for our next unit, 2 units from now for the health unit, here are some other ones that you'll need to know. If you're overwhelmed, pause and come back to this later. But these are just good ones to practice anyway to know. We'll have se brosser les cheveux, to brush your hair. Se brosser les dents, se coiffer, to do your hair. Se maquiller, to do your makeup. Se coucher, to go to bed, which is different than to go to sleep, s'endormir, right? We all know that you can go to bed and still be awake for a while. So we have se coucher versus s'endormir. And then also the opposite. We have se réveiller, which is to wake up, but se lever is to get up. Again, se sentir will come up. That one's extra important. We have s'habiller, to get dressed. Se déshabiller, to get undressed. Se laver les mains, to wash your hands. Se sécher, to dry yourself. And se raser, to shave. Se regarder is to look at yourself. Just a little bit of practice. I'm going to give you a couple sentences and I'm going to ask you to do your best to look at our 2 steps that we've written down in practice just now and see, can you write out the sentence with the reflexive verb correctly? So I'll give you those 4 and then you can pause the video and see the answers. First one is, he becomes bored practicing reflexive verbs. Il s'ennuie pratiquer les verbes réflexifs. As an example, we know that to become bored is s'ennuyer. So step 1 is we figure out what reflexive pronoun do we need for he. He in French is il, so we know our reflexive pronoun will be se. Here, because our verb starts with an e, we drop the e at the end of se and just run it together with an apostrophe, and then we conjugate. Ennuyer is somewhat irregular, but you can see, as with most ER verbs, we are ending with that E for il. So, il s'ennuie pratiquer les verbes réflexifs. Let's try another one. We are not worried about the test. So pause, give your best guess. It would be like, we do not worry ourselves. Soucions pas de l'examen. Right? We worry would be nous nous soucions. We worry ourselves. We add the ne and the pas. We keep the reflexive pronoun and the verb together. Ne and pas go around those set of words to make it negative, to say we do not worry ourselves de l'examen. Next, they wash their hands. They wash their hands. That would be il se lave les mains. Right, for they, we know it's going to be il, so we know our reflexive pronoun is going to be se. We add that in, and we keep the verb conjugated correctly for they. Il se lave les mains. We'll end on a challenge one. I wake up at 5:30, but I get out of bed at 6. Wake up at 5:30, but I get out of bed at 6. So here we've got 2. We have je me réveille à 5h30, mais je me lève à 6h. Okay, we know I is going to be je in French, and now we know that with je, our reflexive pronoun will be me. So we add that, then we conjugate our verb, which we know is usually going to end with just an e for je. So je me réveille à 5h30, mais je me lève à 6h. Et voilà, that's it for now. Take a look back through your notes, make sure you've got everything that you need, and we'll practice more together.